Hey guys, Taylor with GammaEdge here, coming at you with a post-market recap for August 11th, 2025. You can chalk the day up as a failure to go higher today. By what I mean by that is, had the attempt to get above 6,400, ultimately failed and saw progression lower throughout the day. A lot of the day can, be characterized by spent within our transition zone. So we're going to get into how we got our key levels intraday, how we got our key levels in the pre-market, what our intraday tools were telling us about trading today's actually pretty tricky session. Right, so as we always do, start with our pre-market prep in the Discord SPX game plan, very robust. We go through SPX-A, SPX-P, full complex for both of those complexes. Either read this in the Discord or go to our YouTube. We did a pre-market prep video on that as well, so I'm not going to go through this in the entirety. Suffice to say, though, the structure was bullish coming into today, or at least no evidence of things breaking down. Just because we had a down day today doesn't necessarily mean that the structure is broken down either, right? One day doesn't make the trend. We'll need to see follow through and deterioration of the structure. That's why we do it every day. Through systematic process, we will start to see those turning points of when the structure is breaking down. But anyways, getting our pre-market prep, we can see, right off the bat, 6,400 is just a massive strike. No two ways about it. So this obviously was marked at the top of our drunken sailor range. By that, what we mean is that's a massive goalpost in the structure. So we would need to see significant amount of volume, significant amount of activity to help us ramp through that level, just given, the moneyness effects and the negative charm that is producing weighing down on the market. So in order to flip that, we would need to see, a significant ramp acceleration through that key or sensitivity point in the structure. Rounding things out here, though, our key transition zones in the yellow, and then the DEX transition zone in the blue. Right, and if you haven't been with us for a long time, and if these are new to you, these are just those key zones in the structure where we expect more back and forth price action as opposed to a continuation in one direction or the other. However, if we do break those zones either to the upside or to the downside, that is key information, and that we should expect price to continue in that direction. All that supported then by the intraday volume tools, market trend model, all that good stuff. Right, and something we noted in the pre-market, part of our pre-market plan, right, we have multiple different levels that we're looking at, kind of gives us a long-short bias on the day. Right, and if it says, if we fail to take 6,400 with any conviction, then we're most likely on the sidelines until we see how price behaves within the drunken sailor range and, our broader transition zones. Right, and you can see, that's related to how price action acted today. Yes, we had a little bit of an impulse move higher, however, weirdly was not sustained at all. Then, we just traded down rest of the session and, a ton of action just within the transition zones today. However, having said that, something important to note is, looking at our market trend model, which is a very key intraday tool that we use, we can see that, from about, call that 12:30 onward, just saw selling pressure throughout the session. And then looking at our filtered tick, which remember is a measure of significant buying and selling, we saw that not reversing lower, but persisting lower throughout the session, albeit not at the magnitude that we saw last Thursday, but nonetheless, it was still lower on the day. So, failed to get above 6,400, downward trending throughout the session. And yeah, that's why I say, pretty tricky session, just because the amount of time that we spent trading within the transition zone and just kind of a grinding feeling on the way lower today. And then looking at this is our intraday volume analysis we do on SPX 0DT specifically. Calls green, puts red. Right, and the key insight that we saw here is, the call speculation was the trend of that was going lower throughout the session, right? Especially once we kind of had that attempt above 6,400 that failed, we didn't see a ramp higher in call speculation. It was going lower. And, again, if you're new to this stuff, when we see trending markets higher, we see a signature like this that persists throughout the session. We can see, this kind of topped moving lower, all this good stuff moving lower. Right, but at the same time, the put side was moving up sideways as well. So again, it's kind of just converging throughout the session, gives us just a classic kind of chop pattern, which again, hence why I say it's a tricky session. But it's also kind of a textbook session, just in the fact that choppy signature throughout the day, trading within the drunken sailor range, trading within the DEX transition zone, the overall transition zones, failure to go above that kind of key 6,400 goalpost outline in the pre-market prep. And so, yeah, all that to say, directional trades kind of tough today, but I know there's some folks in the community who, had some success selling credit spreads. So it's kind of the beauty about not only this tool, but just our system overall is the level system, just kind of understanding price interacting with those key levels. And if something, if then, right, if then happens in that, successful kind of understanding where price is going, but also where price may not be going and kind of selling, above and below those spots. And again, just so you can see the utility of this tool if you're not familiar with it, this was at 1:55 p.m. So what we do is we plot the centroid throughout the session, which a centroid is the middle point of a distribution. So every 5 minutes, we find that midpoint of the distribution. We plot it, which are these solid green and solid red lines. And then what we do is we know how those centroids have behaved from the open to this point in time. So all else equal, we can project out where those centroids are likely to go. And that's kind of one of the utilities of this tool, is not only telling us what the character of price action is, which is choppy, it tells us where price is likely to go or where price is not likely to go, which again can inform those trading strategies, whether it be, long short futures, selling credit spreads, buying debit spreads, all that good stuff. It's a very adaptive tool to your strategy. So with that, we covered pre-market prep, how we got those levels, covered our intraday tools, navigating the price actions. With that, appreciate the time. You guys have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. Actually, I lied. One more thing. So if you guys are new to us, a lot of this stuff may be foreign concepts, market trend model, transition zones, all that good stuff. So with that, go to GammaEdge.us. We have a ton of free resources for you here. Blogs, 25 plus we've done this year. Free courses. GammaEdge FastPass, that's our kind of flagship course. Teaches you our exact methodology, how to utilize the tools, all that good stuff. So if you're not taking advantage of that, I would highly recommend you to do so, right? And it's free at the end of the day. So while we don't assign, monetary value to it per se, I think it would definitely be worth your while to review this, especially, given the prevalence of options market and how they drive today's modern markets. If you're not familiar with that, this is a kind of good, fast way to get up to speed on that. So with that, thank you. Bye.